All right, so we're in Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj's I Am That, and we are on chapter 40, Only the Self is Real. And his last question this last week was, Are you not afraid to die? And really, what he's trying to get into is what is the experience of being a knower, being a Gyani, being someone who's God realized? And when he's asking his questions, he's framing them just, you can see how our habits and our conditioning of believing ourselves to be a certain thing trains the way we ask our questions, trains our, well, actually gives us our questions. And he keeps trying to get something concrete. Like, I want to know, what's it like to be you? What are you seeing? What are you doing right now? Not understanding that in the state of enlightenment, that sense of I is minimized to almost nothingness. So there isn't a doing, there isn't an experiencing, there's just ising. Ising in fullness, just being completely content, completely immersed in the moment, aware of everything, almost identified with nothing, meaning you have no particular. So your empathy is running at 100. Your compassion is running at 100. Your heart is spilling over with the presence, with an awareness of this immortal, unconditioned love that's welling up inside and just making you almost crazy to serve, to be, to just, yeah, just to express a nature that is so beautiful that it can no longer be contained. It can no longer be controlled, which is really what ego does. It blocks it in and blocks it out and just makes it inaccessible to inspire you. And we talked a little bit about that, about how we are, in fact, the moment, the unchanging moment, and that everything that is changing in here, we're not in it and we're not experiencing it. We are outside of it. It is passing through us. We are the unchanging moment that is always here and now. And through that moment comes all of the change. All the change is just pushed through that portal of self, portal of I am. And I want to read, just because it's such a practical question, are you afraid to die? I thought I would just read the answer again. So Maharaj is asked, are you not afraid to die? And Maharaj says, I shall tell you how my guru's guru died. After announcing that his end was nearing, he stopped eating without changing the routine of his daily life. On the 11th day, at prayer time, he was singing and clapping vigorously and suddenly died, just like that, between two movements, like a blown out candle. Everybody dies as he lives. I am not afraid of death because I am not afraid of life. I live a happy life, and I shall die a happy death. Misery is to be born, not to die. All depends on how you look at it. It's this observation. And I love this idea that his guru announced that his time was coming close, and he didn't change his daily routine. All of us have this idea, what if you knew you were going to die tomorrow? What would you do? And that was Swami Prabhudananda's whole answer to my question. If you remember, I'd asked him, what's it like to be 85? And on the way back from Olima in the car, and he said to me, oh, it's like being 20. And I said, how is that, Maharaj? He said, I've never been guaranteed another day. He said, whether I was 20 or 50 or 80, nothing was ever promised to me, that I would get another day. And I really loved that answer. I was like, that's an answer I should have known, It's like, you're never guaranteed another day. And so if you know you're going to die tomorrow, then really, in true fact, what is there to change? What is there to do differently? You were never guaranteed that one more day. But that you'll die as you live, live a distracted, harried, anxious life. That's how you'll die. Who's going to take care of this? And what's going to happen to that? And what about these? And oh, and ah, and e, and ooh, right? But be in the moment, be present, and death will be a very easy, a very slight transition, actually. I would say it would pass almost unnoticed. Right? Because in that yogi state, being present within yourself in the moment, full and relaxed in your fullness, and the body drops, what difference does it make? You've been renouncing and negating that for your whole practice. And now it drops off. You're like, ah, there it is. And on you go, expanding evermore. And then his closing remark, everything depends on how you look at it. Mind is everything. That's what Thakur tells you. And the story that you hold on to, that you cling to in your mind, determines your experience of the moment. It's no more real than everybody else's. It's just that you've chosen to cling to it, and you're the one who makes it more real than everything else, and you're the one that makes it impact you more than everything else. Right? But this moment, you can be happy simply by choosing. Yes, the mind's going to attack that because the mind contains your karma, but you are not the mind, right? So you can allow that to just pass, and you can see in the moment what you want to pay attention to. If you want to pay attention to the cold and whatever, then you'll suffer those things. If you want to pay attention to the pure potential of your moment, then you can live that pure potential. If you look at the opportunity for creation or doing in the moment, then the moment is that for you. If you're lazy and dark and have nothing to do and feeling lethargic, then that becomes the moment for you. But understand the moment does not come predefined. You define it. And realization is partly about taking back that power, to not living unconsciously, thinking that what you're given is what is. What you're given is just the raw material. From that raw material in the moment, you're the one that creates your artwork. You're the one that creates your moment that you're living. So if you don't like it, change it, or surrender to it and indulge in not liking the moment. As you like. It's a game, it's a toy. It changes, it's malleable. It's like a piece of Play-Doh in your hands. So use it and play. It's you have all the power in the world here in the moment. You have no power at all in the past and no power at all in the future. So this is the only place where your power is, and it's 100% available to you. So use it. The moment is where you break your karma and where you fulfill it. So the questioner says, after that answer about death, he says, there can be no evidence of your state. All I know about it is what you say. All I see is a very interesting old man. I love that he describes him that way, because when I went to see Moksha Prana, that was my last statement to her also before she knocked my socks off. You know, all I can say, all I know about it, your state is what you say. All I see is a very interesting old man. Maharaj, you are the interesting old man, not me. I was never born. How can I grow old? What I appear to be to you exists only in your mind. I am not concerned with it. What a wonderful dispassion to be so free of what others are thinking or what others are projecting on you. Questioner, even as a dream, you are a most unusual dream. So the questioner is looking at the man. They're looking at the yogi. Even as a dream, you are the most unusual dream. So he can see that there's something very peculiar. Maharaj, I am a dream that can wake you up. You will have the proof of it in your very waking up. All right. So yes, okay, I'm a dream, but I'm a Vidya dream, right? I'm taking you toward light. I'm taking you, just hang out here. You can't sleep here for long. That's like in Thakur's presence, in the presence of Thakur whenever he came, actually, and Buddha's presence, Jesus's presence, even in their temples and in front of their pictures. You feel something, there's something here, something's going on here. I don't know exactly what it is, but something's happening. So I am a dream that can wake you up. You will have the proof of it in your very waking up, which means just watch and see. Really, that's all you're doing anyway. You are the observer, the eternal witness. So just observe. Don't get up in arms about having to do it or be it or get there or accomplish it. Witness it. It's happening to you. You're waking up. It's inevitable. Questioner, imagine news reaches you that I have died. Somebody tells you, you know, so and so, he died. What would be your reaction? Maharaj, oh, I'd be very happy to have you back home. Really glad to see you out of this foolishness. Right? All of this constant flow of distraction, all these things that we have to take care of all the time and fix. So I would just be happy to have you home again. I like how he's talking about that because he would know that union. He would know that oneness. Well, what he would know. It's interesting. What would he know? He would have known that you never did exist anyway. Right? That you were never separate, that you were just a whirlpool, an eddy in Brahman of himself, a swirling loop of karma in Brahman, creating a life, creating an experience. And he would know that the eddy stopped and the self expanded into all. I would be very happy to have you back home. Really glad to see you out of this foolishness. Questioner, which foolishness? Of thinking that you were born and of thinking that you died, that you are a body displaying a mind and all such nonsense. In my world, nobody is born, nobody dies. Some people go on a journey and come back, some never leave. What difference does it make since they travel in dreamlands, each wrapped up in his own dream? Only the waking up is important. It is enough to know that I am, as reality and also love. Right? So this foolishness of thinking that you were born and that you will die, that's that linear thinking. You know, that's the thing this morning that kind of snapped me out of my uh, this. I don't know what to call it. I've just kind of been in a state of turmoil since India, just trying to my whole world, my whole box of existence changed, and I didn't have an arc anymore. I didn't have a story. I didn't have a like. This is what I'm up to. This is what life is. And it was really causing a lot of trouble. I was mentioning it to Salil earlier when we first logged on that the number of stories racing through my head, I was just seeing my mind trying to grab one. Okay, Hollywood, make a story about Hollywood. What am I going to do there? Where am I going to be there? What's it going to be like there? What activities should I start? Should I keep doing anything the same? And just this churning. What, and wanting to be nailed down. And this morning, it's funny that it happened while I was brushing my teeth. But I started brushing my teeth and I just felt just the mantra came into my mind very gently. And it brought a very nice sweetness sense to it. And I was like, wow, that's nice. It's kind of something that leaves you for a moment and then it comes back for the first time. You're like, oof, wow, that's really sweet. And just bringing it down and from that moment, just that grace of that moment showed me how many stories were buzzing through my head. How many what if scenarios and where scenarios and what will be scenarios and what does this mean? All of these things. And as soon as that came, just stopping, just like stop. Those are just potentials. You're full of them. They're endless, thousands of them, and they will always be there because you are the potential of everything. Just be here. And in that moment, I just slipped into a place that I had forgotten. It seemed so. It's amazing how the mind is so thoroughly able to block our vision from even familiar places that we have lived in for a while. Places that we've maintained for a while, places that were beautiful, and just how completely we can forget them. It's just like that dream state. You go to sleep at night, you don't know anything about your daily life, what you fell asleep from. There's no memory. There's not even any interest in a memory of what you are when you're awake, when you dream. And so funny that even in the dream, even in our daily life like this, the mind can do that. Just completely evaporate the experience of being centered, being quiet, being in the presence, and just leave you spinning, enjoying, if not enjoying, but at least distracted by your anxiety, by what's happening. And it was so sweet to see this morning that that self that does enjoy his meditations and does enjoy the company of the Divine Mother, that self is still there, even though I'm not paying attention to it, even though my attention is spinning, my attention is outgoing, right? And then just take a moment where I turned around, and I saw myself in myself. I was like, well, wait, what am I doing out here? Why am I all wrapped up in this stuff? And just immediately to feel that sweetness come over. This is grace. This is Mother's constant reassurance of her presence. So which foolishness of thinking that you were born and that you'll die, thinking that your life happens between a beginning and an ending point. Remember, we went through that whole series where we were talking about learning to live on the point, the now, not giving it a story, not giving it a reason, not giving it a purpose, just fully embracing the now and expressing yourself in whatever form you're inspired to in the now, not doing or completing or attaining or grabbing or functioning, but simply expressing your full self in whatever the moment's providing to you. Right. So get it off of that line, that arc of a story that has cause and effect and to-do lists, and just have a to-be list. That's spontaneous. This is my to-be list. Of thinking that you were born and that you will die. So getting rid of that timeline, getting rid of that arc from your life, that you are a body displaying a mind and all such nonsense. So being tied into the body and its demands and its discomforts, and tied into the mind with its demands and its discomforts and moods and whatnot. In my world, nobody is born and nobody dies, because everything is. He gives some indication that even in his world he can see others, which means that to the degree that he still sees himself separate, he can see the separateness of others, but it's not the full separation. You know, he says some people are going on a journey and some are coming back and some never leave. What difference does it make since they travel in dreamlands, right? That is to say, they travel in places that cannot affect them, right? This is a dream. All of this world, the self can't be wedded, can't be burned, can't be, can't be touched. It lives in a chasm, or on the other side of a chasm, from all of the world of change, right? That it's on the other side, and crossing that chasm is what grace is. It's grace that has to lift us across that chasm. You can't take your last piece of karma off your load. It requires grace. Only the waking up is important, he says, right? So in our life, that's why Thakur tells us that's the whole point of this life, to find out who you are, to find out what this life is. This is the whole point. And waking up is waking up from bondage, waking up from a set of restrictions and limitations that had no reason except one that you made up to tangle yourself in it. You created the story. It's just like that game, the floor is lava, and you stand on the table, trying, wanting to jump to the couch, but afraid of what? It's a carpet. But in your world, oh, it's lava. I can't possibly, right? Or that my story about the horror movie. I'm a baby at horror movies. I think it was Alien I went to see. And I spent most of the time with the big bucket of popcorn over my face so that I couldn't see the movie because I was terrified. And I paid for it. I paid for a movie that was so unpleasant I couldn't watch most of it. Right. And this is life. This is how we live. Within you is an oasis. Within you is your peace. Within you is your strength. Right. but then we jump into a movie, we jump into a show and go for a ride. I can't do it. I'm too weak. I failed every other time. I'm not big enough. I'm not strong enough. Oh, that'll be my next life. Right? So none of this, only being. And through being, through that awareness of the moment, you wake up little by little. It happens of its own accord. So our questioner is quite inspired here. He says, my approach is not so absolute, hence my question. Throughout the West, people are, and I'm going to tell you this idea, this throughout the West, the longer I'm in Vedanta and the longer I'm part of this Vedanta center and this world of East and West, the more I'm just getting so sick and tired of this story that we just keep applying to ourselves. In the West, and as Westerners, we love to build up our unique circumstance and the unique conditions that we're in and how it can never be the same. And it goes same on the other side. It's just this thing. It's like, stop it. These stories are unbearable because they're so believable. And we slip into them so easily when we start defining ourselves that way. It's just so easy to see those differences, but they're not valid. We are hearts, searching for love. That's all. That's the sum total of everything for everyone in the world. We are these creatures of immortal, infinite love who have lost our sense of that love and have become beggars for that love, right? And in order to get that love, we start using the love that we have in order to get love. And we get into this starvation mode. And so, just this thing here. Throughout the West, people are in search of something real. Well, I don't think that's just the West, right? People are in search of something real. They turn to science. Yes, we all turn to something. Not everybody's turning to science. A lot of us are turning to all kinds of stories on the internet. They turn to science, which tells them a lot about matter, a little about the mind, and nothing about the nature and purpose of consciousness. All right. Well, I wouldn't say nothing about the nature and purpose. It would just give it a very different spin on its nature and purpose. They would say that it's born of the brain, that it's a physical process that creates consciousness. And the point of this consciousness is self-preservation, right? So that's the idea of science. Me and mine, me and mine. To them, reality is objective, outside the observable and describable, directly or by inference. About the subjective aspect of reality, they know nothing, right? This is true. It is extremely important to let them know that there is reality and it is to be found in the freedom of consciousness from matter and its limitations and distortions. Now, he's picked up, this is a trap that I fall into all the time. And it's one, and I'm going to mention it just because I wonder if it's more common than just me. Whenever I read a real good truth, or stumble on something beautiful in the scriptures, or have a moment of inspiration, one of my first thoughts always is, oh, I should do a vlog on that. Oh, that would be a great lecture. Oh, that's something we really need to know, right? I'm always in this space of thinking in that way. But this is the trap, because he's all caught up in this idea. It is extremely important to let them know. Well, brother, don't you think it's a little bit more important that you know before you let them know? Don't isn't that a
The
little
thing
bit
is,
backwards?
if he got it, he wouldn't be worried about it then.
That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. But don't we get into this space? I find myself in this space all the time. It might be because I'm kind of playing my part in the play as a Swami. But instead of reading these things and being like in myself, like, oh, Chidbram, that's something really good for you to work on right there. That thought will be there, but the overwhelming experience of it is like, oh, that's a I should share that. That's a good thing to share, right? And so we come up with these ideas, we get our eyes, out of our inner world, right? We put our eyes out, we do it, that whole process. We start paying attention to the senses, the crowd out there and what they need and who they are. And we create a story. Even Westerners, what do you know of a Westerner? You know nothing. You just know of yourself. You grew up in this circumstance, in this life. This is something I had to learn about Christianity. I grew up, and after I became a Vedanta, I used to talk about Christians all the time. And then I realized after Vedanta exposed me to a lot more different types of Christians, I realized that's a useless word. Christian is so broad. You can't talk about Christians as a group. You can't talk about Hindus as a group. You can't talk about Americans as a group. You can't talk about India as a group. It's like there are so many nuances. Yes, there are some similarities, but the vast majority of us, there's brotherhood. The vast majority of us is people just trying to find and express love, just trying to find a stable, supportive ledge to stand on in this world of constant change, you know. And so we shouldn't be talking about these truths in terms of broken pieces like this. These truths are for all of us as existing beings. They are our means, right? They're not better for others. They're not more confusing to others. It's all up to you and your karma, your earnestness and your sincerity in the moment, right? So, yes, he's saying all these things about Westerners here and how it's extremely important to let them know that there is reality and it is to be found in the world, in the freedom of consciousness from matter and its limitations and distortions. Most people of in the world, okay, now can you imagine? This is a statement we'll actually make. You'll actually hear yourself saying stuff like this sometime. Most people in the world, stop. Have you spoken to most people in the world? Have you even ever met most of the people in the world? What an absurd thing to say. Most people in the world, and this is why one of the most manipulative things that we use over each other. These constant polls on the news at night. When you look at those polls, they're like the majority of Americans feel that such and such and such and such. And it's a means of control because, of course, you want to be part of the majority in that. But then you look at their poll. The poll was taken of a sample of 1,000 arbitrary people. 1,000 people. There's 380 million people in America. You're going to tell me now, out of talking to 1,000 of them, that the majority of them are thinking this way? I highly doubt that's true. You know, and we get caught in these boxes. You see, we get caught in these little boxes of definition. And the ego is always trying to do that because it simplifies something that's infinitely complex, right? It takes something that makes no sense to us and we create an artificial sense in it. Oh, yes, most people think this way. Oh, yes, most people are like that. Oh, yes, this is but you have no idea. You have no idea what Americans are thinking or what most Americans are doing, because there's none such thing. Most Americans are concerned about having 3 meals today and getting a good night's sleep, right? Most Americans are concerned about finding out that their wives and their husbands and their family are doing well and that they're happy, right? That's what most Americans are doing. That's what most Americans are concerned with right now. And I bet you can go to every country in the world, and that's what most people are concerned with right now. That I'm well, my family's well, that I have love in my life, that I'm sharing love in my life, that I'm healthy. You know, that's that's what everybody's worried about. All of this other stuff, moods, dreams, passing aromas, but nothing real, right? Where we live, right here, right now. Am I loved? If I'm loved and I feel loved, I can pretty much endure anything. Am I loving? That's all the purpose I need, to be loving. My life will be a beautiful life if I'm a loving person, regardless of what I do. Right. So come out of all of these stories that we get caught up in. Right. Most people in the world just do not know that there is reality, that there is a reality that can be found and experienced in consciousness. Yeah. Do you see what ego is does to us? Do you see how ego has formed that whole sentence for him? Right? Most people in the world just do not know that there is a reality which can be found and experienced in consciousness. It's like, sweetie, you don't know. Who is this most of people that you're talking about that don't know? And from what perspective are you standing that you're seeing them as a group separate from yourself? You're not a realized soul, my friend. And yet you've created a situation here where most of the world needs what you have. Do you see how ego does that to us? See how it traps us in a space like that, where these absurdities, first of all, to break this most people, none of us can make a statement about most people because none of us, even if we counted everybody we've bumped into on the subway in a lifetime, we still have not bumped into most people. Right? We've bumped into a very small subset of people who we don't know what they're thinking. We can only project on them what they're thinking, right? We don't have any idea. So it's good to bring these things back to what do you actually know in this moment, right? That question that I like to ask myself, what do you know that doesn't require something else that you know? What's not an assumption? What's not relative? You know, these things don't get caught up in these worldviews that are absurd. If you sit here and read almost every sentence here that he says, you see the absurdity, not because he's an absurd person, but because he's a person trapped in egoism. And we can read that and we can take it apart and we can see, oh my God, look how that happens to us. First, we break the world into other and me, and then we make assumptions about this huge other. And then we begin classifying it, categorizing it, putting it in containers. And then we begin determining what is necessary and what has to be done and what is my role in it. Right. And just deeper and deeper and tighter, that noose stretches around your neck, and you're gasping for just a little bit of freedom at the end of the day. Right. So most people in the world just do not know that there is reality which can be found and experienced in consciousness. It seems very important that they should hear the good news from somebody who has actually experienced. Such witnesses have always existed, and their testimony is precious. He's sitting in the presence of one of these people. What's he what's he gyrating on about? It's like, what are you saying, dude? You are right there with the medicine right on the shelf in front of you, and here you are going on about how it's important that people get to meet people who know this stuff. Well, become one of the people who knows this stuff. If it's that important, become it. Give yourself permission to be it. Maharaj. I love it. Just a two-word answer, really. Of course. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Of course. The gospel of self-realization, once heard, will never be forgotten. Like a seed left in the ground, it will wait for the right season, and it will sprout, and it will grow into a mighty tree. There it is. There's the assurance. There's the promise. This you have heard, this good news of self-realization. All of us have heard of it. Once heard, he says, it will never be forgotten. Right? It's going to be there. You know this to be true, right? I don't know how many people I've talked to when they run across a spiritual truth. Inside, there's just a knowing. Wow, that's true. Wow, I've always known that. I've never really seen it said, but that's amazing. Right? So it's true. It will have its effect. So it's done for you. The cobra has bitten, as Thakur would like to say to you, Ramakrishna. The cobra has bitten you. Stop it with the anxiety and the worries about how long and when and why and how, and just be in the moment knowing that it has happened. You have heard the truth, and now it will unfold. It cannot but unfold. It is happening. The gospel of self-realization, once heard, will never be forgotten. Like a seed left in the ground, it will wait for the right season, and it will sprout and it will grow into a mighty tree. There's your promise. You can just sit and enjoy that process. Now, just keeping your eyes on the beloved. Chapter 41, develop the witness attitude. Our questioner jumps right in here with a good paragraph again. What is the daily and hourly state of mind of a realized man? You see, yeah, okay. What is the daily and hourly state of mind? You see, that's the whole point right there. That is that means nothing to an enlightened person. What is the state of mind of a realized man? He has no state. It's completely flexible, completely open to what is. There's no expectation, there's no opinion. Right? So there's no state of mind. How does he see, hear, eat, drink, wake, sleep, work, and rest? What proof is there of his state as different from ours? You see, he's convinced it's a state, it's a condition, it's a circumstance. Why? Because as body minds, everything is a circumstance and a condition. Everything, always. That's what it is to be identified with body mind, right? And so we're looking at this realized soul and we're like, wow, what's your state of mind? What are the conditions that are letting you be what you are right now? Right. And when he says there's no conditions, there's nothing changing. What do you, stop asking questions. Your questions themselves are causing you to think wrongly. You know, you're not, just observe some more. Just shut up. Stop asking questions because they're absurd and they're leading you into absurd ways of thinking. Observe, watch, be present. Of course, I should just be reading the text here, sorry. But what proof is there of his state as different from ours, apart from the verbal testimony of the so-called realized people? My goodness. Is there no way of verifying their state objectively? Are there not some observable differences in their physiological and nervous responses, in their metabolism or brain waves, or in the psychosomatic structure? And Maharaj, oh, this is a beautiful answer. It's going to be infuriating to our questioner, though. You may find differences, or you may not. All depends on your capacity of observation. The objective differences are, however, the least important. What matters is their outlook, their attitude, which is the total detachment, aloofness, and standing apart. Right? So they are not subject to a condition. They are not subject to a circumstance. There is not an expectation of outcome. There is only the surrender to isness, to what is available. And from that, you take and you simply express from your nature. There's no story. It's not a condition. It's not a set of circumstances. And to see it, the asking questions about it is more confusing than just sitting in it. Just sit in it, you know. You may find differences or you may not. It really depends on your level of egoism. If you're heavily engaged in body mind, that's all you can do is find differences and categorize them. That's how you create the world you live in. Right? And he says that. He says you may find differences or you may not. That depends on how you're going to be sorting it out with your own ego, with your own comparison to your own imagined self. Everything depends on your capacity of observation. You see, to observe something rightly, you have to stop the stories. You have to stop the assumptions, right? Observe it. Let it show you. Don't ask questions about it. Observe it, right? And if questions start arising, start watching closer, right? Don't formulate the questions. Just watch, fully present, fully focused. And that understanding comes with the observation. So he says, okay, so our enlightened soul, so Maharaj is saying what matters is their outlook. Okay, what is the idea with which they view the world, right? God is everywhere present, always perfect. Right? That's the view of the world. The unchanging is real. The unchanging alone is real. Everything that changes is unreal. Right? That which is composed must decompose. These are their ways of approaching their givens, the place from which they observe the world. So their outlook, their attitude, right? There is non-resistance. The attitude of resistance is not there. They don't try and change the moment to make it perfect. They don't try and fix the moment. They accept the moment. That's their attitude. They always see it as perfect and accept it as it is. And through that acceptance, they then can go on with expressing rather than fixing, expressing themselves in the moment. So their outlook, their attitude, which is of total detachment. I'm not any of this, and none of this can affect me. This is a dream world that I'm living in. It's the story of my beloved everywhere being told in the moment. Total detachment, aloofness, right? I'm safe. I am love. I'm ever free. I'm pure. I cannot be affected by this. I cannot be killed. I cannot be born, right? So this total aloofness, standing apart, never forgetting you're the observer, never forgetting you are only a witness. That's your only role, right? The whole idea of doership is a story, and a frustrating one because it's not a true story. So you're only the doer when you're in alignment with what's happening. If you see yourself the doer and you're not in alignment, then you're the failing aspect of the moment. Right? You have to own your inability to do what you need to do or want to do. And so you come up with more opinions and conditions and ideas about yourself. The questioner, well, does not a Gyani feel sorrow when his child dies? Does he not suffer? Maharaj, he suffers with those who suffer. The event itself is of little importance, but he is full of compassion for the suffering being, whether dead or alive, in the body or out of it. After all, love and compassion are his very nature. He is one with all that lives, and love is that oneness in action. Right? You see, so his love is natural. It's not conditional. It's a natural, flowing, constant expression in the midst of all change. Right? So he suffers with those who suffer. Why? Because he is the one suffering. He knows himself to be the sufferer, so that empathy is complete. The event itself is of little importance. The story doesn't matter. It's the isness that matters. There is suffering. I suffer. And in that suffering, my nature is to alleviate that suffering. And so I alleviate that suffering. Love is the oneness that leads me toward that wanting to alleviate suffering. And so I love. Right? So it's a natural process. It's not a calculation. It's not a story unfolding. It's simply being what you are in the moment and allowing it to be perfect in harmony with what the moment is. Pure acceptance, pure surrender, pure, pure witness, pure seeing. He is one with all that lives, and love is that oneness in action. Questioner, people are very much afraid of death. Maharaj, the Gyani is afraid of nothing, but he pities the man who is afraid. After all, to be born, to live, and to die is natural. To be afraid is not. To the event, of course, attention is given, right? So there's nothing to fear, right? Because our analysis through the scriptures that we know is yes, things can happen to the body, but things cannot happen to me. Things can happen to the mind, but things cannot happen to me. I'm an unchanging, steady spirit, in the midst of it. And as spirit, I am not material. So I cannot be affected by conditions, right? I cannot be affected by changes. I'm transcendent. I'm looking in to this world. I am not in this world. It's like in your dream, you're needlessly afraid of the violence in the dream because you're going to wake up just fine, regardless of the outcome of the dream. So you cannot be affected by the dream. And you don't just believe this, you see this, you know this. It's apparent and self-evident because you have observed the very subtle essence of your inner self. And you've come to know this for sure. Questioner, well, imagine that you are ill. You have high fever and aches and shivers. The doctor tells you the condition is serious. There are only a few days to live. What would be your first reaction? Maharaj, no reaction. As it is natural for the incense stick to burn out, so it is natural for the body to die. Really, it is a matter of very little importance. What matters is that I am neither the body nor the mind. I am. Right? So these are wonderful, 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 very, very, very meaningful clues. No reaction. You only react when you resist. So there's no resistance to the moment. This is what the moment brings. Look, the body doesn't feel well. The body's giving all the indications that it's sick. Yes, body, I see that you are sick, but I'm fine. I've been through many bodies. This is one in a long line of bodies. So yes, it will also fall. And it's all as natural as can be. I enjoyed birth, now I will enjoy death. They are the yin and yang of the same thing. As natural as it is for an incense stick to burn, so it is for my face to turn into a goblin and melt away. What matters is that I'm none of this. None of this. This will all fall away like fog on a morning, will burn away from the coast. What matters is that I am neither the body nor the mind. What matters, I am. This isness, this sweet being that I can see, hear, taste, touch, smell, all of this, and know the one behind it. Know the love behind it. Question, your family will be desperate, of course. What would you tell your family? Maharaj, oh, the usual stuff. The usual stuff. Fear not, life goes on, God will protect you, we shall soon be together again, and so on. But to me, the entire commotion is just meaningless, for I am not the entity that imagines itself alive or dead. I am not born, I can't die, I have nothing to remember, I have nothing to forget. So just completely other, just what do I tell my family? Well, the usual. It's going to be fine. No, we all die. Heaven will be great. We'll see each other again. Right? He says, but I know that I'm none of those things. Those are all dreams, all stories, all little tidbits. I'm the whole. I'm the complete. I'm the one without a second. I'm the one that contains all of this within me, every potential. What about the prayers for the dead? By all means, pray for the dead. By all means. It pleases them very much. They're flattered. The Gyani does not need your prayers. He is himself the answer to your prayers. Right? There's a great deal of power in that sentence right there. And it's one I get spooked by it as a bhakti, as a bhakta. I get a little bit spooked by it. But I've also been very empowered by it when I've realized that I am the one that I'm praying to, in the end, at the highest realization. I am the one that I'm praying to. And that when I sat and really thought about that, and even now, of course, especially even now, when I sit and understand that and think about it, wow. Because when I look at the way I live, I'm like, am I going to get the answer to the prayer that I want, looking how I live versus what I'm praying for? If I am the one that I'm praying to, where is the strength that I'm that is needed for the response to my prayer, right? Where is the singleness of mind that's necessary to answer my prayer the way I want it answered? If I'm the one that I'm praying to, then I'm the one responsible for manifesting it. And it's not that there is no God, right? It's just that God has not gone elsewhere and left you weak. That's the story. We pray to this God of strength, but we keep him separate from ourselves. And we pray to him to change this and pray to him to help me with that and pray to her for this comfort and this whatnot. And that's all beautiful and all absolutely as it should be. What shouldn't be is this idea that it's separate and that all of your strength lays over there, right? This is where the Gyani, where when Takir says, take that Gyana and tie it into the corner of your cloth, this is what he means. He's like, look, you're the one you're praying to. Can you answer your own prayer? Are you being sincere and earnest? Are you really wanting the thing you're praying for? Because you're praying for yourself to be pure in X, Y, or Z. And yet at the same time, you're the one exposing yourself to X, Y, or Z. You're praying to get out of circumstance X, Y, or Z. And yet you're the one that put yourself into condition X, Y, or Z. And so I found it to be a very powerful understanding. I don't allow it to diminish my sense of God, because to diminish my sense of God, I have to first diminish my sense of of being separate from God, right? As long as I believe myself separate from God, then God exists just by fact, even for the Gyani. As long as I see myself separate from the whole is God, and the separateness is me, right? And so removing this separateness is what all of the paths do, right? In the path of bhakti, we're seeing it through love. We're having that closeness and that identity and that union with the beloved through relationship, through grace, through mercy, right? Through familiarity, through our prayers and our meditations and sitting. For the Jnana, it's through observation, it's seeing, it's understanding this sense of self, of separateness, and what feeds that sense of separateness, and renouncing that, letting go of that, letting go of that, letting go of that. So in both conditions, the exact same process is happening, just through different words, through different uh, arrangements of the same information. But so all the paths not only are all is all religion one, but all the paths are really one in the end. They all have one task. What is that one task? Dismantle this wrong idea that you are separate and apart from the whole, that you are changing. All right. So by all means, pray for the dead. It pleases them very much. They're flattered. The Gyani does not need your prayers. He himself is the answer to your prayers. The questioner, well, how does the Gyani fare after death? The Gyani is dead already. Do you expect him to die again? You see, that egoism is dead already. There is nothing more to it. It never was a real thing. So for the Gyani, the body doesn't matter. This die to yourself. That's a very strong idea in the Christian scriptures. This idea of dying to yourself. This ego self, this sense-based self, dying to that is what you have to die to. And as a sannyasin, you actually have to do your own funeral ceremony. When you take your vows, you bury your old self. That's common to all religion. this dying to the old, letting go of that past, letting go of that karma, letting go of that story. Be fresh and new in the moment. Be reborn in every moment. See every moment as new and give yourself the freshness in every moment. It's choice, it's perspective. Stop calling it karma. It doesn't exist. All right, we'll stop there for this morning.